KSHP this weekend, 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. to win with the Sharps. JP the Ticket, Vegas Scoreboard Express. All money, all sports, no bull. Miss the live show? Subscribe to Vegas Scoreboard Express on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, and wherever you enjoy your favorite podcast and radio listening.
The world-famous radio shopping show, weekdays on 1400 KSHP North Las Vegas and KSHP.com.
The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the program's participants and do not necessarily reflect those of station staff, management, and advertisers.
It's time for the most interactive radio program in Las Vegas today. It's time for Pushing the Limits with Brian Shapiro. Brian will talk sports, politics, entertainment, and anything that matters to you. Feel free to call Brian at 702-221-7283.
You want answers? I want the truth!
Now, Pushing the Limits, here's Brian Shapiro.
What's up, everybody? It is Pushing the Limits time. So glad you could join us on a very nice, beautiful Halloween day. Yes, it is October 31st. No more Halloween parties for me. I'm kind of Halloween partied out. But we got a big show lineup for you today, man. We got some great guests I'm really excited about, and a lot to get to, as we always do on this show. Coming up here in just a few minutes, we're going to be joined by a man who used to be the Clark County Republican chair. He's going to be sitting in this chair on my right today. His name is Dave Gibbs. He's the president of the Nevada Republican Club. He also ran for Congress. I've heard a lot about him. I just met him in the lobby, and he's going to be joining us in studio here in a few minutes, so I'm really looking forward to that, and I know we'll have a really good conversation. Coming up in hour number 2, what a disaster for Josh McDaniels and the Raiders. Garoppolo was absolute trash yesterday. And what better person to talk about that than the man who wrote an article criticizing Garoppolo? I just read the article, really good. Scott Gulbrenson from the Silver and Black Today podcast will be joining us in hour number 2. Listen, Vivek Ramaswamy has come on this show. I've interviewed him. Is he a smart guy? Sure. He's well-spoken. I don't think he should ever be anywhere involved with politics. I've always felt that way about Vivek. But he's now taking it to a new level. He did an interview with Piers Morgan, and we're talking about Ukraine, or at least they were talking about Ukraine. And Vivek has alluded to this before, but now Vivek Ramaswamy is basically saying that he wants to give stolen land to the evil, murderous dictator Vladimir Putin, and that's how we would end the war, which is absurd. Have a listen to this exchange.
I would freeze the current lines of control.
What do you mean? What does that mean?
These are Russian-speaking regions that are occupied today.
You would literally give Putin what he's stolen.
You would give a guy... I'm not giving him anything. I'm giving him a deal.
What did you describe him as to me again?
It's conditioned.
What did you call Putin?
He's an evil dictator.
You give an
evil
dictator...
So are countless others.
Land he's stolen by killing people. You would give him the land.
Pierce, I'm not going to give him anything. I'm giving him a deal.
You've just said you give him the whole...
I'm not going to give him. That's your word, not mine. I give him a deal.
No, that's not his word, Piers Morgan's word, not Vivek. That's exactly what you're doing, Vivek. You moron, you clown. You don't reward an evil, murderous dictator no matter what he gives you back. Vladimir Putin went into Ukraine, killed innocent civilians, raped women, beheaded people, and stole land, or at least attempting to steal land from Ukraine. And Vivek is saying, we'll give you some of that land, just back off. You're basically telling an evil, murderous dictator it's okay to invade another country and kill a bunch of innocent civilians because we'll make a deal with you. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. And the fact that Vivek is even thinking like this is beyond dangerous. It's ignorant, and it goes to show you that Nikki Haley was absolutely right on the debate stage when she told him, you have no idea what you're talking about when it comes to foreign affairs. Basically, you're an imbecile, and that's what Vivek Ramaswamy is. He's an imbecile. Imagine, for example, if members of Al-Qaeda came into the United States of America and wanted to steal a state. I'm just using this as an analogy. And we were at war with Al-Qaeda, and politicians in this country said, you know what? We'll give Al-Qaeda part of New York City as long as they back off. That's exactly what Vivek Ramaswamy is saying that he would do when it comes to the Ukraine-Russian war. It's absurd, it's ridiculous, it's an embarrassment, and Vivek Ramaswamy should be absolutely ashamed of himself. Then what we had yesterday was Jean-Pierre held a press conference, and Peter Doocy, as I like to call him, Peter Douchey, because that's what he is. He just shows up to these press conferences, tries to get Jean-Pierre in these gotcha questions, and sometimes they're embarrassing questions. And the topic was the Israel-Palestinian conflict and anti-Semitism, which is going on all over the country, by the way. It's despicable what's going on in this country, where you have students at universities across the country that are tearing down these posters that are showing innocent Israelis that have been kidnapped. It doesn't matter whether it's an innocent Palestinian or an innocent Israeli. Nobody should be taking down those posters. We've got anti-Semitism, running rampant across this country. And Doocy asks this question in this press conference to Jean-Pierre in regards to anti-Semitism. Have a listen to this exchange.
Doesn't Biden think the anti-Israel protesters in this country are extremists?
What I can say is what we've been very clear about this. When it comes to anti-Semitism, there is no place. We have to make sure that we speak against it very loud and be very clear about that. Remember, what the president decided when the president decided to run for president is what he saw in Charlottesville in 2017, when he saw neo-Nazis marching down the streets of Charlottesville with vile anti-Semitic just hatred. And he was very clear then, and he's very clear now. He's taken actions against this over the past 2 years, and he's continued to be clear. There is no place for this type of vile and despite this kind of rhetoric.
Okay, so everything she just said there makes completely 100% sense if you have an IQ over 20. But some of the alt-right morons out there are saying, oh my God, she's comparing Charlottesville with just peaceful anti-Israel protesters. No, she's not. That's a lie. And if you go on social media, you'll hear all these, or at least see all these right-wing radical Republicans that are lying. That's not what she's doing. And by the way, some of these anti-Israel protesters are pro-Hamas. Let's be very clear on that. If you're pro-Hamas and you defend genocide and Hamas going into Israel, burning babies alive, beheading people, raping women, and then killing them, if you defend that sort of stuff, then yes, I would say you're probably no better than your typical white supremacist like those that were in Charlottesville. But Republicans, some of them that are on social media, don't quite understand that. They don't get it. Yes, not everybody that is anti-Israel is anti-Semitic. Not everybody, I wouldn't say that. But a lot of these protesters out there that are anti-Israel refuse to call out the terrorist organization that is known as Hamas. If you refuse to call out a terror group, a terrorist organization, or refuse to call out white supremacy, you're all in the same. You're a bigot and your heart is full of hatred. I don't know what else to tell you. But Republicans, some of them on social media, are trying to attack Jean-Pierre for making what I would consider a very fair and legitimate statement that the President of the United States, Joe Biden, is all against any type of hatred. It could be anti-Muslim, it could be anti-Israel, whatever the case may be. And she was very clear with what she said. But Republicans today are trying to find a way to sizzle up at Jean-Pierre. Oh, I can't believe she compared this to that. You're all a bunch of right-wing clowns is what you are. All right, here's what we're going to do, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to take a quick break, and I'll ask our next guest about this. His name is Dave Gibbs. He's the president of the Nevada Republican Club. He's ran for Congress, and he was the former Clark County chair as well for the Republican Party. So certainly a lot to get to with him. Donald Trump, we're going to talk about Speaker Johnson. We'll talk about his criticisms about the Joe Biden administration. Certainly, I want to hear that. The Israel-Palestinian conflict. A lot to get with Mr. Dave Gibbs when we come back. We'll take a quick break, and we'll be back right after this. You're listening to Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP.
Hey everybody, are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a knockout. We're located at 467 East Silverado Ranch Boulevard, just off of Premium Road, half a mile east of South Point Casino, just minutes from the Las Vegas Strip. Come by and grab a slice of pie. Plus, check out our Brooklyn-inspired Italian cuisine. Our sandwiches are super. Hero, that is. Because why be a sub when you can be a hero? Stallone's Italian Eatery is here to serve you phenomenal food, Vegas. Forget about it.
Hey everybody, it's Brian Shapiro from Pushing the Limits here. I want to tell you guys about my good friends at the Postal Annex. They have a notary signing agent on-site daily, no appointment needed, and they offer a full scale of printing services from shipping labels to documents, business cards, banners, photos, and business signage. They're your passport service headquarters. They offer passport photos, and they can renew your adult passports. If you're traveling in a hurry, they can get those passports to you within 7 days or less. Mailbox rentals with a physical street address, and they also receive your packages from Amazon, UPS, FedEx, USPS, and more. Here's the best part. If you're a Pushing the Limits listener, they have an introductory rate of only $39 for a 3-month service. You can't beat it. Give them a call, 702-873-8005. Check them out at 6130 West Flamingo Road. It's the Postal Annex. And tell them I sent you.
Buying or selling a home is a huge life event that requires guidance from an expert in the industry and community. My name is Blake Gwynn. You may recognize my name as my grandfather was the best governor the state of Nevada has ever had. Growing up in Las Vegas, I've come to know this community intricately. Now, I am raising a family here as well, so I understand all the issues impacting our home and quality of life. As the top realtor for the #1 real estate team at Keller Williams, you can have confidence in my experience, knowledge, and track record. When it comes to buying, selling, or investing in real estate, choose a name you can trust and someone who understands the community you call home. Call Blake Gwynn today and experience the difference of a trusted expert. 702-540-3311.
Zen World Premium CBD offers full and broad spectrum CBD oil, extracts, and capsules which are designed to help you feel your best. Their products are sourced from the best organic hemp and natural ingredients on the market and are tested for quality, purity, and potency. They have a full range of items from health and wellness to beauty to pets. Call 725-205-9223. Visit online at zenworld.com or stop by their location at 9895 South Maryland Parkway and Silverado Ranch Parkway. Mention KSHP for 10% off in store or use code KSHP online for 15% off.
Locally owned and operated, come on down to Academy of Hair Design located at 5191 West Charleston Boulevard, number 150 today to begin your career in cosmetology. There is something for everyone from cosmetology to nail technology. You will be able to have the hands-on training that is needed to succeed in this career field. Call 702-878-1185 or visit www.ahdvegas.com today.
All right, welcome back to Pushing the Limits on a Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate you being with us. As you know, if you listen to this show, I probably interview more Republicans than Democrats on this show, and that's the way I like it. I like to have good conversations. We had Amy Tarkanian in studio a few days ago. Good friend Amy's, and of course her husband, Danny Tarkanian. There's a lot going on in the world, and I'd like to hear, while it's okay to agree with people, I think it's okay to disagree with people too and have good conversations. And today's certainly no exception to that. So, without further ado, the guy we have with us in studio right now, he ran for Congress in 2018. He's the president of the Nevada Republican Club, and he's the former Clark County chair as well. His name is Dave Gibbs, and he joins us in studio. Mr. Gibbs, I really do appreciate you being here. How are you, sir?
I'm good, Brian. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you being here. A lot to get to, but did I get your resume correct? Did I make any mistakes there?
You got you got the recent important things.
Good. Okay. And you've been involved in politics for how long?
Almost 20 years now here in Nevada.
Wow. So you've been doing it a long time. The political landscape, for lack of a better term, has changed a lot during Trumpism. Is that a fair statement to make?
Well, not just Trumpism. It's changed in the 20 years. I mean, look how much our state has grown. And in the process of that happening, that's changed a lot of things here in Nevada. We've been, people have called us a purple state, a red state, a blue state. It's swung, it's moved back and forth, and I think it's going to continue to move back and forth.
Yeah, and I would consider our governor, Joe Lombardo, a moderate Republican. He's not, I wouldn't call him a MAGA Republican, and I have friends of mine, even Democrat donors, that supported Joe Lombardo. So I think Lombardo is going to be a fine governor. I'm not worried about that one bit. Let's get the Donald Trump stuff out of the way to begin, and then there's a lot of other topics I want to get to with you. We're going to talk about the Israel-Palestinian conflict. I want to talk to you about gun control, healthcare. We're going to cover everything here.
Okay.
I'm going to assume, and tell me if I'm wrong, that you voted for Donald Trump twice. Is that a fair assumption to make?
I did.
Okay, fair enough. Is it fair to say, because people criticize me and say, why do you talk about Trump so much? He's still the face of the Republican Party, is he not? He's the overwhelming favorite to be running against Joe Biden in 2024. Is that fair, accurate?
He's got a significant lead, that's for sure. That's for sure.
What do you make? This is your party.
Okay.
What do you make of the fact that this is a man that's facing 91 felony counts? He's proven to be a liable rapist in a courtroom. And then when you look at some of the biggest faces of the Republican Party that are running for president, most of them are asked, will you support Donald Trump if he's a convicted felon? And they raise their hand and say yes. Now, I haven't asked you that question. You're welcome to answer it if you would like to. But what do you make of that?
There are a lot of folks who like what he did while he was president. Now, our economy, feeling about America, our strength in the world, energy prices, we're energy independence for the first time in a long time. One of the comments he made was, I think the night he got elected, he said, "The forgotten man is forgotten no more." And a lot of people that resonated with a lot of folks who felt that nobody listened to him. And so they glommed onto that, they like it, and they still support that. And barring anything significant happening, I don't know how that's going to change.
Would you consider what happened on January 6th significant?
Significant from the aspect of the protest. I mean, everybody calls this an insurrection, okay? When you look at, go back to the revolution in the 1700s, that was an insurrection, okay? An overthrow of a government. This was a protest that I think got out of control. I'm not a fan of what happened. I don't like what happened. I wish it hadn't happened. I think some of the people who did some of the things they did should be, should be tried, and they have been, and some will be. Now, the question is to what extent were their trials, for lack of a better word, fair or just. I think there's still some time for that to fall out. Right now, there's a lot more politics involved in that than there actual is justice, and so that's part of it too. I think, like I said, I think it got out of control. It should not have happened. And I'm sad and upset that it did.
Sure, as we both are.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you saying that. What I asked some Republicans is, if Donald Trump didn't lie and say that the election was stolen, I think we would agree that, I think you've said on the record that, yeah, Joe Biden's a free and fair elected president, right? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is that a fair, accurate?
He was elected president. Did you ever read Molly Hemingway's book, Rigged?
I did not.
Okay. There were a lot of things that were done to move the dial in his favor all across the country.
In Joe Biden's favor?
In Joe Biden's favor, all across the country.
Like what?
Well, up in Wisconsin, where Zuckerberg went in and they put people into the voting office in Green Bay. He spent over $400 million. There were other things that were done, voting laws that were changed in Pennsylvania by the court. Not by the legislature. The court just decided we're going to change the laws.
And that was because of the pandemic, correct?
Well,
global pandemic.
It was an excuse. It wasn't a good reason. It was an excuse.
You think they changed the laws and used COVID as an excuse?
Oh, absolutely. They did that here in Nevada. They passed the law in 2020 in the special session that created the mailing ballots.
Isn't Donald Trump the guy who said don't do mail-in ballots? Isn't he the one that told his people not to do it? So wouldn't you blame Donald Trump for that?
Part of it is also, I mean, back after, I think it was 2004, when George Bush was president, he got that commission to go to James Baker and Jimmy Carter.
Right.
And they came out and said, mail-in ballots are probably the most significant avenue for voter fraud and for creating questionable results in elections. I mean, and
so if that's the case,
yep.
Donald Trump had 61 opportunities, his attorneys did, to provide evidence of that.
Yeah.
I'm an evidence-based person, and I would assume you are as well. There's no evidence of widespread voter fraud. I think we would agree on that. That could have overturned the outcome of an election. I think we also could agree every election is going to have its issues, right?
Absolutely.
And I have absolutely no problem if people want to make elections more secure, or they fine. I have no issues with that at all. The issue I have is when Donald Trump continues to this very day lie and says he won the election in a landslide. And my question to you is this: if Donald Trump didn't do that the months before January 6th happened, and he didn't say he won the election, he didn't say Joe Biden cheated, he didn't say the Democrats cheated and it was rigged, does January 6th happen?
Well, don't know.
You think it still would have happened?
No, I think there still would have been people that would have been upset about it. I don't know what would have happened. I don't know what would have been different. There are a lot of questions raised. I've been reading some articles just in the last few weeks where they've talked about some articles that have come out where they're finding things of that happened, and people are starting to raise questions about it. I made a comment. I said, I am not saying voter fraud. I'm not screaming voter fraud. But there's things like, for example, down in Fulton County, Georgia, okay, where they just said, okay, we're done counting ballots for the night. All the observers go home. They all went home. It's on video. A few minutes later, they start pulling out boxes and running ballots through, and they're still continuing counting, even after they said they were done counting. What's up with that? Why wasn't that investigated? So there are questions. There are things that need to be asked. Is there evidence out there? I don't know. I don't have access to all that, so I can't,
So
I'm not in the middle of it.
I hear you. I think there's a difference between asking questions and saying the election is stolen. The front runner of your party has said the election was stolen. And that's where my issue is. Anybody can ask questions, but when things have been investigated and there's no evidence of widespread voter fraud, you have Republican secretaries of states and those kinds of people that are saying the election was fair. Everybody around Donald Trump, including Bill Barr, his own daughter, members of his administration, said that the election was secure and you lost, Mr. President. And he still refuses to admit that and continues to lie about it. I guess that's where my problem is, and I would say to you, I would respectfully disagree and say January 6th does not happen if Donald Trump isn't lying. If he just wanted to raise questions, then I think that's fine. But that's why we have our courts, and that's why he had 61 opportunities to, or at least his attorneys did, to present evidence, which, by the way, they were unable to produce. I'm an evidence-based guy, and I just feel like when we go to the MyPillow guy and Rudy Giuliani for answers, and Sidney Powell, by the way, many of these people are now going to be testifying against Donald Trump. Meadows, another one. I guess what I'm trying to say is I think Donald Trump is full of crap. He's a liar. He never was leaving the White House. And I think that's why January 6th happened. And I guess maybe that's where we disagree. But I put a lot of responsibility on Trump. He didn't go in there and storm the Capitol. But when we heard people saying, hang Mike Pence, defecating on Nancy Pelosi's desk, 140 officers injured, Donald Trump sat in the Oval Office, at least according to witnesses, for 5 hours and did nothing.
I don't know the details on that. You obviously have looked at that more than I have. And one of the things that, I still remind people that there are still people out there that think that the election was stolen from Hillary Clinton. There are people out there who still believe the election was stolen from Al Gore. So, they're not running for president anymore. So therefore, this issue is still not is not out there. So,
do you feel that's a fair equivalency, though? Because Hillary Clinton conceded the following morning, and when Al Gore exhausted all of his legal opportunities, he also conceded. Donald Trump, as you know, will never concede the election.
Well, then that's on Donald Trump,
right? And that's my point.
And that's on that's on him. And I'm not here. Like I said, that's on him to decide.
And I understand that.
Yeah.
And I know you don't speak for Donald Trump. I totally get that. The only reason why I bring this stuff up is, like I said before, he's still the front runner of the Republican Party, right?
Yep.
He's still the leader of your party, whether some people want to admit that or not. He still is, right? I mean, he's overwhelming favorite. DeSantis ain't going to beat him, okay? Nikki Haley, she's rising in the polls, and I do have certainly some respect for Nikki Haley. She's not going to be able to defeat Donald Trump. Now, with that being said, I think there are better candidates that would have a better chance to beat Joe Biden than Donald Trump. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that a lot of the candidates that are running right now could beat Joe Biden. There's some polling lately that's been out there that shows that Nikki Haley for the last couple months beats Joe Biden in some national polls. It's neck and neck between him and DeSantis, although the latest poll I saw showed Biden up for like 1 point. And so, there are, when you look at what the current president has going on and what's going on in this country, what's going on in this world, I think a lot of the Republican candidates could give him a really good run for the money and beat him.
And I want to, and in this hour, I want to talk to you about your criticisms of Joe Biden. It's not just going to be about me attacking Donald Trump.
Well, that's good.
And I do want to talk to you about the Democrats, and I want to talk to you about Joe Biden. But I do want to go back to something you said, because there's a lot of Republicans I talk to, like yourself, that say, well, here's why I voted for Donald Trump. I like this policy. I like that policy. I want to go back to 2016. He ran on two major campaign promises policy. He said, we're going to build a wall, and Mexico is going to pay for it. He built 16% of the wall, and Mexico did not pay for it. Would you? And the other thing he ran on was, we're going to lock up Hillary Clinton. I'm going to assign a special prosecutor to investigate her. Not only was she not prosecuted or indicted, he didn't hire that special prosecutor. So would you call those two things failed policies? Because he ran on those two policies in 2016, and as you know, failed on both of them.
Well, the interesting thing right now is Congress passed and appropriated the money to build a wall. President Biden stopped it. It was in work. I mean, this is a big, long project, so I don't know how, and the appropriations process takes a long time. Yeah, the whole part about Mexico paying for it, I think, there was campaign rhetoric. There still is campaign rhetoric. But the other part of it is that a few weeks ago, President Biden said, hey, guess what? We're going to start building the wall again. And he's saying that, well, Congress appropriated the money, and by law, I have to spend it, and I have to build the wall.
He was right on that.
Yeah, and he was correct on that.
He was not able to.
He was not able to get it to stop.
Right. But so he was telling the truth.
He was telling. Yeah, he was good on that.
Yep.
But the point is yeah, okay. So the wall's still continuing now. How much further? How long? This hard to say. We'll see what it's.
Would you consider that failed policy though? When he says,
well, policy is different from action. Okay. And unfortunately, the action wasn't able to match the policy. Right. The policy was still there.
And I'm not going to sit here and say Donald Trump didn't do some good things. Yeah. But I feel like, and you correct me if you disagree with me,
okay.
I feel like his hateful rhetoric in attacking women on looks, or what he said about John McCain, I don't respect him because he was captured, basically attacking every single person that disagrees with him on something. And then the second that somebody doesn't kiss the ring of Donald Trump, he attacks them as well. I only hire the best people. Well, then why are some of the people that you hired testifying against you? Why did Michael Cohen go to jail? Why are all these people around you convicted felons? I mean, that's just my personal opinion. I think and I feel like there are some in the Republican Party that are afraid to speak out against Donald Trump.
It would be interesting to have him in this seat and you ask him those questions.
Well, I don't think he'd want to do that.
Well, and I mean, I can't speak for him. I can't answer that.
Right.
I'm not in the rooms. I'm not in the meetings. So I can't, I think it would be pure opinion and speculation on my part as to what may or may not have happened and why or why not other people are doing it. And I don't think it's fair to them or to Donald Trump to sit there and go, this is
well, your personal opinion. I know you don't like Joe Biden. I know you don't like. Yeah, go ahead.
The part of it is that during his time as president, I think the biggest thing that that bothered me was that some of that rhetoric.
Sure.
Okay, I think he went to extremes when he didn't need to go to extremes, and I think that hurt him, and I think it cost him the election in 2020.
I agree.
I think that was the big thing. Is one of the things people talk about when somebody's running for president is, or thinking about who they're going to vote for, unless they're if they're kind of fence sitting, going, am I comfortable with this person being on my TV every day for the next 4 years?
Yeah. Well, that's the next question I was going to ask you. Yeah.
So the question is, am I comfortable with that? And I think some people said, you know what, I'm just not good with that anymore.
I think a lot of people are feeling that way. Yeah,
and
I
so that's part of the things, and it's one of the things that I made a comment to somebody. I says I think Donald Trump lost the election the night of the first debate when he went out and attack, and interrupt. The second debate, he was much more relaxed. He smiled. He was much friendlier. He was much more jovial, much more cordial, and a totally different opinion. By then, millions of people already voted.
I think that's a good point.
And so I think had he had that performance in the first debate that he had in the second debate, it might have been different. Hard to say.
I think that's a very fair criticism. I think in that first debate it was disgusting, and he was better in the second debate. I agree with you. All right, last Donald Trump question, and then I want to move on to some other issues. But,
okay.
But I'm going to ask you the same question that those Republicans on that stage We're asked. I know you don't like Joe Biden. I know you're a Republican. I get that. I know you don't like the administration. Understood. And we're going to talk about why. But if Donald Trump is a convicted felon, it could be one felony, it could be 91. If it is Donald Trump versus Joe Biden, who do you vote for?
I'm not a big hypothetical kind of guy. I'm not big on ifs, just to let you know that. I want to see a Republican in the White House. Joe Biden needs to go, period.
So even if he's convicted of multiple felonies, you would still vote for him over Joe Biden?
You know,
as much as you dislike Joe Biden, and I understand.
I dislike what's happening in the country right now.
Okay.
Okay?
Fair enough.
And it's not going to change with President Biden in the White House.
Understood.
It's that simple. That's the biggest thing. You know, I mean, people here in Nevada are paying twice as much for gas than they paid 4 years ago.
Do you blame Joe Biden for that? For gas prices?
I blame his energy policy for that.
Which energy policies do you believe are the reasons why gas prices are high in this country?
Cutting down on domestic oil production. He's bringing in oil from countries that are not necessarily friendly to us. The money that the federal government has put out there is created more inflation. Just printing the money and putting it out there has created inflation. The regulations that they continue to push on both manufacturers and on distributors, the cost of goods has gone up. I mean, all of those factors are a result of the economic policies of Joe Biden.
You don't think some of those factors would be the war in Ukraine right now and the pandemic?
The war in Ukraine didn't start the energy problems. I mean, gas prices were already up high before the war in Ukraine started. Okay? The pandemic, did it have something to do with it? I think so. I think, the continuous how long things were locked down, the fact that we had all the lockdowns we had, I wasn't a fan of. But part of it is also, I believe that the general attitude of the federal government towards energy, towards oil and gas, has created some of the situations that we have with the price of energy today.
Why is it then that the entire world seemed after the pandemic dealing with inflation and high gas prices? We're actually lower as it stands than a lot of other places throughout the world. So if it was Joe Biden's policy, I'm just throwing out that question.
Okay.
Why is it that we've had gas prices and inflation throughout the world? That's the part that I struggle to understand.
Energy prices throughout the world have always been higher.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they marvel at the fact of how inexpensive gas has been in this country.
Isn't it corporate greed then, Dave?
No, I don't think it's corporate greed.
Then why are they making record profits in this country?
Part of it is the fact that record prices, and that's part of it. Part of it is the demand has gone up since COVID. The demand has gone up, so they're selling more.
Sure.
Selling more gas creates more profit. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's just a fact of life. You sell any product, you increase the sales of any product, you're going to make more profit off of it.
Listen, I'm all for lower gas prices.
Yeah.
I'm with you on that.
Yep.
I think where we disagree a little bit is putting the majority of the blame on the President of the United States, who doesn't set the gas prices. But I understand where you're coming from, and I think there's a lot of frustration in this country and throughout the world.
He doesn't set the prices, but they have the ability in Washington to manipulate the market. And the manipulations that they have done have led to significantly higher gas prices. They weren't higher. Look what they were 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. Okay. And they came down when President Trump was in office. Yeah. Okay. What did he do? Look at his energy policy about the fact that we're going to open up. We're going to, as he put, what was the phrase back when McCain was on drill, baby, drill. Okay. When he opened up gas production, when he gave the market the ability to operate without the heavy hand of the federal government on its shoulder.
Yeah.
Look what happened.
I guess my point is, when I talk about the pandemic, right? Obviously, Donald Trump did not want to have a global pandemic when he was president of the United States. It certainly didn't help his presidency. It doesn't help Democrats or Joe Biden when gas is $5 a gallon either. I don't believe Joe Biden wanted that any more than Donald Trump wanted a global pandemic when he was president of the United States. But let me ask you something about this. When I asked Republicans, what do Republicans stand for today? I knew what Republicans stood for 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 20 years ago. But today, and I'm not saying you do this, but a lot of Republicans on the far right when I see them on television or doing radio interviews, they're talking about the same things that I don't think most Americans care about. They're talking about drag queen reading to kids. They're talking about gender ideology. They'll complain about Obamacare, but there's absolutely no replacement plan. So I ask you, does that frustrate you? Because I think most Americans, they want to talk about the economy or gas prices or inflation or healthcare. And I see a lot of these MAGA Republicans, because that's what I refer to them as, talking about drag queen reading and gender ideology. And I say to myself, why don't you get off those topics that most Americans don't care about and actually give me some solutions?
Okay. Well, I think to some extent, part of it is that those are significantly emotional issues. Okay. And so they're the things that get people fired up. Why do people talk about them? Like I said, those are the things that get people fired up. So that's part of the issue. I mean, no offense, and people ask me what is your number one issue? My number one issue is the federal debt. Mm-hmm. I think that's the biggest national security problem for this country over the next 30 years.
Who do you blame for that?
I blame Congress and I blame the White House. I blame both parties. I blame the Washington government that has allowed that to happen, that doesn't have the spine to stand up and do what needs to get done for the American people to stop it.
The only reason why I ask you that question is because Nikki Haley made a very good point on the debate stage last month when she blamed Republicans, and she actually gave the facts on the proposals, and Republicans proposing 3-4 times more money than the Democrats have. That's the only reason why I ask you that.
No, like I said, I blame both parties. Right. Neither party, when they've been in charge, has done anything significant about it. The last time we had a balanced budget was when Bill Clinton was president, Newt Gingrich was Speaker of the House.
Right. Trump didn't do a good job.
Neither did Obama. Neither did Bush. Neither did Clinton. Well, right. Clinton did for a little bit, but it's been an issue. It's never. And to me, that is, the number one thing. And I can't remember where I heard this or who said it. But, we've all heard the line, Margaret Thatcher's line, the problem with socialism is sooner or later you run out of other people's money. I heard something or read something, and again, I can't remember who or where, said basically we're looking at about 2050 when we're going to run out of other people's money. Mm-hmm. So, and now I'm not putting a marker on the table saying that's when it is, but the point is we cannot continue down this path. Sooner or later, somebody's going to say, you know what, I'm not buying it anymore.
I agree with you, and I think we need to talk about this more.
And I think it is incumbent upon Washington, because they're the ones who do it, to get a spine and do what needs to get done. Mm-hmm. Now, both parties are blamed. Absolutely.
What do you make of the new GOP Speaker Johnson? That whole situation with Matt Gaetz in finding a GOP speaker. And again, I do have some criticism for Johnson in the fact that he's not willing to separate church from state. After the mass shooting we had in Maine, and we can get into gun control a little bit, but his response was prayer. We need to pray. And I believe, and I always, by the way, I'm not an atheist. But I do believe that there has to be a separation between church and state. And when I see a guy like Johnson kneeling in the House chambers and constantly talking about prayer and how he forms his policies, that's clear. He only goes by the Bible. I have a problem with that. I wanted to get your take on that.
Did you have the same problem about people kneeling when they knelt during the Floyd thing, when all the Democrats went out there and knelt?
Sure.
Okay,
so
good.
here's the difference. No, let me answer that.
Okay.
Here's the difference. That had nothing to do with religion. When they knelt, George Floyd was a symbol, and that had to do with racial equality and the way certain people are treated when it comes to police. They kneeled in solidarity. They weren't kneeling to God, and I can also tell you that I don't believe that any politicians were changing policy because of their belief in God. That, to me, that's the differential there. You're talking about the professional athletes who, by the way, Donald Trump called sons of bitches for doing so. I would never use that terminology towards Johnson or any Republican. I wouldn't call them sons of bitches for kneeling, because I just think that's blatantly disrespectful. I'm just saying I disagree with it.
I think it's disrespectful for them kneeling, too. So, it works both ways.
But you wouldn't call them sons of bitches for doing so. Tell me, why do you have a problem? Let's talk about that.
Okay.
Why do you have a problem with people kneeling during the national anthem in solidarity for racial equality?
The issue, not something I thought much about answering. Part of the issue is that I look at it and say, yes, this country has problems. This country's always had problems. We've had problems since before this country existed. This country will continue to have issues. Sure. This country, racial issues in this country have existed since before this country existed. The debates that happened in Philadelphia during the Declaration of Independence, the debates that happened in Philadelphia during the time of the drawing of the Constitution, the fact that we had a civil war on it, it took a civil war to eliminate slavery, all of the issues that have gone on with Jim Crow, Brown versus Board of Education, all of the labor laws, all of the voting laws, all the things that have happened over the history of this country. I would be surprised if you find another country in the world that has gone through as much angst and as much changing in its attitude towards people of different races than this country has. We are probably among the most, if not the biggest, the biggest country in the world as far as mix of races and ethnicities. Okay, many countries in the world are by and large ethnically or racially homogeneous. Okay, a lot of them are. There are countries in this world that are significantly more racist. They're significantly more prone to take action against somebody. For example, in the Middle East, I mean, they throw homosexual people off roofs or they hang them.
Correct.
It doesn't happen in this country.
Well, thank God.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There are other countries in the world where, yeah, I mean, people of other races. I mean, look what's going on in Russia right now, where they just had the protest and they're closing the airport because of the protesters out there trying to find out the Jews that were coming in on the airplane. Okay, not happening here.
Thank God, but that doesn't mean we're perfect.
Well, no, absolutely. No country is perfect. No person is perfect.
But why do you have a problem with a peaceful protest?
I don't have a problem with peaceful protest.
Isn't that what they were doing?
Well,
Kneeling? Isn't that peaceful?
There's a different, I think it's the wrong, if you want to go, in the venue they were in the situation they were in, I think it was inappropriate. Now, if you want to go out and kneel outside football stadium when you're not at work, I have a then different animal.
What if your employer tells you it's okay?
I have a problem with the employer telling you that you can do it while you're working.
But you wouldn't take that decision away from the employer, though, right?
No, I know then the employer has to suffer the consequences. Look what happened with Anheuser-Busch with Bud Light. Look what's happening. Look what's happening with Disney right now. In fact, I was driving down here today, and they just delayed their Snow White movie for a year. Delayed production for it. They spent $300 million so far on a movie that they haven't made, and distinct possibility is they won't make it.
Right. I guess the distinction.
So, and they are suffering the consequences, and
well, the NFL
has suffered the consequences.
Their ratings have continued to go up since kneeling. I've heard so many people say they're never going to watch the NFL again. In fact, that's the contrary. The ratings have continued to climb.
Look at the NBA. Look at what's going on with the NBA. And
well, the NBA regular season's a bad product. I don't think that has
they've also gone even further. Mm-hmm. They've gone significant in their actions. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I remember they were all happy. They had 4 million people watching the playoffs the NBA finals last year or earlier this year. Well, in 1990s they had. What was the number? 70 million people.
I would argue because the product was better in the 90s.
It could be.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I don't watch
because if that was the case, the NFL ratings would not continue to climb, and they've continued to go up. But I guess the distinction I'm trying to make.
I think people are more forgiving about the NFL than they are about the NBA, and I think the NBA has created situations because of Nike and China.
But I guess and that might be true. But I guess Mr. Gibbs, the point I'm trying to make is this, right? There are Republicans in office today that have voted against gay marriage, and they use their religion as being gay, as being a sin, to form policy. And I think there's a distinction between doing that and a professional athlete taking a knee during the national anthem. I'm not saying I would take a knee during the national anthem. I went to Black Lives Matter protests, but I'm not saying I would do that.
Okay.
But it doesn't bother me either because I don't look at that as, oh my God, they're desecrating our flag, they hate America, and some Republicans would characterize as that. And I don't defend Colin Kaepernick either in a lot of situations because I think he's made a lot of mistakes with the pig socks he wore and wearing a shirt of Fidel Castro. I have not defended Colin Kaepernick, okay? I'm not a Colin Kaepernick fan. However, if a professional athlete says, you know, I saw what happened to George Floyd, I saw what happened to Ahmaud Arbery, I want to take a knee in solidarity. And if athletes, I guess that's where I don't have a problem with it. I do have a problem with people forming policy based on their religion.
Well, you know, we've done that in this country throughout its history. Mm-hmm. Okay? We have. There have been people who have, God's mentioned in our Constitution. God's mentioned in the Declaration of Independence. Throughout our history, religion has played a factor to some extent, significantly less in this country than in many others. But it's still there. our Judeo-Christian heritage is still, I mean, it goes back to even before people ever, before people ever left Europe to come here or, left other parts of the world. So, from that aspect of it, it always plays a part. Now, the fact is, do some people wear it on their sleeves more than others? Yes. Are some people more vocal about it? Yes. And so when you look at it, but when you look at, Martin Luther King, the Reverend Martin Luther King, the impact that he had on policy, all right, and the fact that he was talking about religion and what the Bible had to say, and the influence that had on changing policy, you can't say that religion didn't have an impact on policy. And so, and justifiably so. That's one of the things about it is, and I don't think you can completely, I agree. The Constitution says that the government will not form a religion or prohibit the free exercise thereof.
Right.
Okay. Doesn't say you can't. I mean, they still say prayers.
Right.
In the House, they say, the president says, "God bless America."
I guess
the point is that, and when you go into a job like that, you bring your values with you. The fact that your values may be based on one form of religion, it may be based upon the denomination that you are, but you bring those values with you, and whether they're based on religion, whether they're based on some other aspect of your life. They're the things that made you who and what you are. You bring those with you.
I hear you.
And you cannot completely discount them. You should not.
I hear you. And you make some very valid points. I guess where we might disagree is I don't consider it a value when you treat people differently because of their sexuality. If that's a value where you're a sinner because your sexuality is different than mine, my definition of that is not a value. It's called being a bigot. That's my personal opinion when it comes to that. I want everybody to be treated as equals. And when Martin Luther King, you mentioned, when we talk about, we want us all treated as equals. We don't want to have to sit in the back of the bus. We don't want to have to drink from a different drinking fountain. Now, if that comes from religion, fine. But I just, as a human being, I say, okay, that's just a human value. That's a value. We want us all to be treated as equals. When I see people taking a knee, to me, that's a value. We want law enforcement to treat us equally no matter what we look like. Do I think, by the way, I'm pro-police. Our sheriff, I think he's a great guy. I want to be very clear on that.
I like him too.
The majority of police officers are heroes. Yep. I have them in studio. I am pro-police and pro-Black Lives Matter movement. I think we can. I think we can do both. But let me ask you this, because this is opening up a can of worms here. By the way, for just joining us, we appreciate him being here. Dave Gibbs, good conversation. He's the president of the Nevada Republican Club. And in a few minutes when we take a break, I want to also, when we come back, give you the opportunity to talk about the club and how people can get involved and go to your events. I know you just had Ron DeSantis, which is great. I will talk about that. You mentioned wearing something on your sleeve, and you reminded me of something, Mr. Gibbs. We have certain members of office that have an A+ rating from the NRA that literally wear on their jackets AR-15s as pins. You know what took place in Maine. You know what took place in our backyard, October 1. Horrific. I think we all agree it's horrific, right? I don't hear a lot of solutions from Republicans when it comes to gun control. In fact, Ron DeSantis, who you just had at your event, has made it easier for people to get guns. Same thing with Governor Abbott. And I understand that a lot of Republicans don't agree with Democrats on this issue. I totally understand that. But what I want to hear is solutions, and not the solution of we need to harden our schools or give kindergarten teachers guns. I haven't heard any real solutions from Republicans, so I want to get your thoughts on that. And by the way, some of those people that are wearing those pins, besides George Santos, have $25 million, one of them invested in a company that sells guns. So I want to get your thoughts on that. Speaking of wearing things on your sleeve, what are your thoughts on all the gun violence in this country, and what do you think should be done about it?
Boy, if I had the answer to that, I'd be both very, very popular and probably very wealthy. One of the things, Nevadans, one of the things about Nevadans is regardless of the political party here in Nevada, Nevadans are very pro-Second Amendment. A lot of the same exists in a lot of other states. There are, unfortunately, in the case in Maine, there was a history of this man having mental issues. Mm-hmm. And yet the action was not taken. What is the action that's legally allowed to take? That's probably the debate that needs to happen and is going to, needs to happen both in the halls of Congress and in the courts, preferably in the halls of Congress, but the courts, it's going to wind up with the courts eventually. Where do you draw the line between someone's individual liberty and when the government has a right to come in and impact that liberty?
I think that's a very good question.
And that is a very good question.
I can answer it if you'd like me to.
Now, the question is when that person's liberty has the potential to impact somebody else,
right,
especially their life, then yes, the government has potentially an obligation to look into that and to come up with something on the preventative side.
Do you believe that assault weapons and AR-15s should be sold to regular everyday people like you and me? Now, by the way, I want to mention this. You served this country honorably. You're a hero. And I should have said that to start the show, which I will always respect your service to this country, so that idiots like me can go on the air and share his opinions every day. So in all seriousness, I'm talking to someone who risked everything. You risked your life for this country, and that's even more important why I ask you this question, because I know you're a Second Amendment guy, and there's nothing wrong with that. My only thing is I want people like you to be able to defend yourself and buy guns and protect yourself. I don't want to take your guns away. I just think of the assault weapons ban, and I think there's many things we can do to make it more difficult for crazy people to get their hands on guns. That's all.
And I agree with that last statement. Crazy is questionable whether crazy is the right term.
Bad people.
People have issues. But the question is, and this is the part where there needs to be that discussion between, and I'm not the guy to give you the correct answer, but I believe that discussion needs to happen in a rational way between the people who make the laws, the medical people, and whatever other entity they believe needs to be out there to have that talk. Hey,
I agree.
What do we do? What do we do? How could we have prevented this situation?
So I agree with you.
And so the question comes in is, can you prevent every situation that's ever going to happen?
No, of course not. I would never make that statement.
You only, and it's the other side of the coin. The Democrats are about, well, we want to take everybody's guns away. Well, first of all, it's not going to happen.
Who said that?
Well, find a Democrat.
Give me one.
AOC has said she wants to take everybody's guns away.
No, she never made that statement.
Okay, well then maybe I've heard different statements from her than you have.
Well,
but the point is when they talk about gun control, they talk about taking people's guns away.
Well, they talk about assault weapons.
Oh, they talk about more than assault weapons.
well, okay.
I mean,
but
they've talked about more. This is true. They've talked about more than assault weapons.
What prominent Democrat has said they want to take all your guns away? That's because I disagree. with you.
I will admit I have not.
Because it hasn't happened.
I disagree. It has.
So you're saying Ocasio-Cortez says she wants to take every gun away?
She wants to take the people's guns away.
She's talking about assault weapons.
Well, they've gone. She may not be the only one. There are others that have gone. There are a lot of folks that talked about it. Okay.
I don't know.
Taking people's guns away. Now the point is
assault weapons. Yes, I agree with you.
Well, even beyond assault weapons, they've talked about taking. Where was it? And I can't remember where it was.
But I hear
where basically they've talked about limiting the sales or restricting the sales or taking away the sale. People not being able to buy handguns. Okay, but the point boils down to the fact that even if you're not going to take them all away, ain't going to happen. There's 300+ million guns in this country.
I don't think that's the argument by Democrats.
Well, I disagree. I disagree with you on that. But the point is that
that's not Joe Biden's policy. He wants the assault weapons ban. He's never said he wants to take all your guns away.
Step one. Let's take, step one.
But there was an assault weapons ban in the early 90s.
Yes, and the courts deemed it unconstitutional.
Well, Republicans allowed it to fizzle out. Gun violence was down. So you think when Joe Biden says he wants an assault weapons ban, that will lead to all guns being taken away?
I think it's step one.
Okay. Well, I respectfully disagree with you on that.
You got to start somewhere. Sure.
I respectfully. It did.
And
start.
you look at the bans that some of the Democrats around the country trying to place on hunting. They're not trying to play. Why are they trying to place the gun? Because they don't want people out there hunting animals. Well, you don't need. You're not going to allow to hunt, then you don't need your gun.
I don't think you need an AR-15 to hunt a deer.
Well, I agree with that. You don't need one.
It's absurd.
You don't need one.
You don't need an assault weapon.
I got a 30-06. Okay. That works just fine for deer hunting.
If people want to hunt and you're doing it legally, I have no problem with that. I don't think we need assault weapons to defend ourselves.
Well, and part of it is that. Again, that discussion goes on and on.
Mm-hmm.
And if the law gets passed that assault weapons are not going to rephrase AR-15s. Now, see, there's different. What do you define as an assault weapon?
I define an assault weapon as weapons that were used in the Sandy Hook shooting, in the October 1 shooting, in the shooting in Buffalo. Why is it always an AR-15? I know it doesn't stand for assault rifle. Why is that always the gun of choice? The shooter in Maine had an assault weapon. Why is it always that type of weapon?
What is the definition of an assault weapon?
Well,
I mean, you have a rifle. It's a different kind of rifle. An AR-15 is a different kind of rifle from a 30-06.
I understand, and you know a lot about this, and I respect that.
And so the question is, what is your definition of an assault weapon?
These weapons, here's my definition of what an assault weapon is: the types of weapons that are designed to kill as many people as possible in a short period of time. And I don't believe
you can do that with a 9mm handgun.
Then why are they not using 9mm handguns? Why are they all using AR-15s?
I'm not the guy. That I can't answer. But the point is the fact that the definition of an assault weapon. Okay, what is an assault weapon? That's one that people have a question about.
Let's put that aside.
Multiple, automatic fire weapons are prohibited. They've been illegal for decades.
And again, I know you're very knowledgeable when it comes to this stuff. And
the point is, I mean, even the guy on October 1st did not have, he did the bump stock, which gave him a quick rapid fire, but it was not an automatic weapon.
Correct.
Okay?
So listen, I know,
bad as that was,
I understand that. You serve this country. Yeah. You're very knowledgeable when it comes to weaponry. You've been trained on how to use them, and I get all that stuff.
Okay.
But with that being said, what I want to hear are solutions. And listen, I have 5 or 6 different things that I think would work, and you might disagree with them.
Yeah.
But I think red flag laws need to be implemented stronger. I believe that it shouldn't be 18, it should be 21 to purchase a gun. I think there should be some mandatory training. I'm not talking about 80 hours, but give me a couple hours on how to hold a gun and how to store it properly. We don't have any of that stuff either. You have to re-register your car. I know driving a car is a privilege. I get that. And then when I hear people talk about the Constitution, I say to them, did we have assault weapons when the Constitution was? No, we had something called muskets. Technology changes. There's a reason why we don't have hand grenades. Hand grenades are illegal. Why are they illegal? Well, someone could make the point, I'm using a hand grenade to defend myself, to protect myself. No, it's not your Second Amendment right to have that. Why? Because they're dangerous and they can kill a lot of people. I want somebody like you, especially somebody like you who served this country honorably, which I will always respect. I would never take that right away from you. All I'm simply saying is, what many Democrats would say is, I don't think we need some of these weapons of war that were not designed to defend yourself. They were designed to kill as many people as possible in a short period of time. I don't want regular, everyday people. I want law enforcement, and I want brave men and women in uniform to have those weapons. Okay. That's all.
Okay. The thing about it is, like I said, those weapons are modified to prevent them from being rapid-fire automatic weapons. Okay? So to get one bullet, you have to pull the trigger each time. Now, you've only got a certain number of rounds in the magazine. You got to replace the magazine. Like I said, so a lot of that. Believe me, these are all abhorrent. Trust me. I mean, from Columbine up to Maine. All right, all of these mass shootings that happened, the school shootings. I mean, October 1st, they were horrific. They were abhorrent.
So what should we do, Dave? What should we do?
I don't have the answer. I will tell you that. I don't have that answer. Nobody has. I shouldn't say nobody has. There's no one person that has an answer. But I don't think the discussion is going on that needs to happen. I don't think we've got the right people because part of it is that, either A, they don't want to deal with it because the solution is too hard. But maybe maybe you get some people on both sides of the political spectrum in Congress, around the states. You get the NRA in the room. You get some of the anti-gun coalitions in the room, and see if they can actually have a serious conversation. You get the medical people in the room going, okay, let's talk about.
Don't disagree with you at all. Don't disagree.
But the point is, I don't know that we've done that.
Okay, but let me ask you this then.
And those are the people. That entity has got to have. That entity is what's got to have that discussion.
I think that's
great. It's not going to happen on the floor of the House of Representatives, and it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen, and it's not going to happen in all of the legislators across the states of the countries. Okay, and eventually, yes, the courts may or may not be involved, but the point is the fact that the people who need to be involved in that discussion are not. there is no form. This is part of the whole thing.
Sure.
If you want to solve the problem, get the people together, figure out how to solve the problem.
Dave, I don't disagree with you at all with what you just said, but here's my criticism.
I mean, I have my position, you have your position.
Understood, and we need to meet somewhere in the middle.
Well, we need to figure out what the correct position, or not the correct position, the correct solution is.
Again, I don't disagree with anything you just said. You sound very reasonable. My criticism of the Republicans, some of them, are that I believe they're in the back pocket of the NRA. The NRA is donating a lot of money, as you know. This is a fact to some of these Republicans out there, and they care about their A-plus rating. Why do they care so much? They put it in their campaign ads. And I think that's
the teachers union, 99% of the Democrats in this country get money from the teachers union, and look what's happened to education in this country.
Right.
And guess what? The Democrats wear that. I'm supported by the National Education Association, the American Federation of Teachers, the Nevada State Education Association, Clark County Education Association, and our education in this state is now 50th in the country. And all that money from those Democrats going from those unions and from those supporters going to the Democrats, and the Democrats haven't done squat about it. So you can't sit there and go Republicans NRA, and not go Democrats teachers unions, Democrats teachers unions.
Okay, I understand.
Right, so the same thing applies on both sides of the aisle.
Okay.
You know, and when we sit there and talk about, I mean, this last legislative session when they talked about education in the state, Democrats didn't do a single thing to solve the problems with education. Mm-hmm. Governor Lombardo got his read by 3 done. Nothing else of any significance got done in the legislature that the Democrats controlled to fix education in Nevada, to get our kids to learn. 10% of African Americans in Clark County are proficient, 5th graders are proficient in math. That's a crime.
So I agree with you.
And there's nothing that the teachers union are doing, and nobody's screaming at the teachers union to come up with a solution.
So I agree with you that education is very important. Hold on, let me just respond to what you just said. I agree with you that education is very, very important.
Yep.
And I think it is a fair criticism to go after the teachers' unions. With that being said, Democrats' support and bringing out the teachers' union is not responsible for our kids being massacred and shot down in our schools. Hold on, let me just finish real quick.
Okay.
We have the highest gun violence in this country that we have ever had. We have mass shootings in this country every single day. Our kids are being massacred in our schools. Now, if you want to make the argument that kids aren't graduating, the graduate rate's too low, and you want to blame Democrats for that, fine. I think that's a very fair conversation to have. But when it comes to the gun violence in this country and our kids being killed, I think those are two separate entities.
But what you're doing is you're putting it all on Republicans.
And it comes to passing things in Congress, absolutely.
But there are Democrats who get ratings from the NRA that are not Fs. All right, there are legislators across this country.
Can you name me one Democrat that is...
I'm not going to give you... can I sit there and give you a name off the top of my head?
Well,
no, but I can also give the name of Republicans who don't get A+ ratings from the NRA.
Absolutely, but can you
I didn't
name
get an A+ rating from the NRA when I ran for Congress.
Absolutely, but can you name me one Democrat that has ran on their A+ rating from the NRA? That has run a campaign ad on that? Because I can give you 50 Republicans right now that have.
Sure. Well, there's an obvious reason for that. Because a lot of these Republicans support the Second Amendment. They support the people's ability to keep and bear arms.
Could it be possible that they also take their campaign money more important than the safety of our American lives?
Well, no, I disagree with that. You can't sit there and go, I'm going to trade I'm going to trade 20 lives, so that the guy down the street can benefit so I can get money from the NRA. No, and even in the NRA, it doesn't support that aspect of it. I mean, when does the NRA come out there and, in fact, the NRA has come out and condemned every one of these mass shootings.
Well, of course they're going to
condemn
it.
Sure, they're good. Absolutely.
Just because they condemn it, actions speak louder than words.
But the point is the fact that, the point is the fact that the individual of this country has the right to do that, okay? Now, if certain individuals shouldn't have that right, well, then again, this gets back to the discussion we had a moment ago. You need to get the people in the room to determine, how do we determine that individual shouldn't have that right?
I'm not saying they don't have the right. All I'm simply saying is I think they put a little bit more precedent on getting donations from the NRA, and I don't think it's a fair analogy to say Democrats do the same thing, because I can't name you one Democrat that has campaigned on that.
Politicians go out and get donations from everybody. Look how much, look at how much money the casinos give to, the culinary union. Look at all the entities. That's right. So why do you single out just the NRA?
Because the culinary union isn't responsible for the gun deaths in this country. That's why.
I agree with that. But the point is the fact that neither's the NRA responsible for the gun deaths.
I think the NRA has something to do with it. They want as many guns out there as possible. They think more guns are the answer. They think they think more guns make us safer, and that's a lie. It's a blatant lie. More guns do not make us safer.
Okay.
We have more guns.
That's your position. I'll let you, and you can have that position.
Well, here's why I have that position.
All right.
Because we have 140 guns per 100 people in this country.
Okay.
If the argument is more guns make us safer, then why do we have more gun violence in this country than virtually any other country in the world? If the argument by some Republicans is more guns make us safer, why do we have all this gun violence? Shouldn't we have the least gun violence?
I can't speak to the statistics because I'm not familiar with them, so I'm not going to.
Okay.
That would be wrong.
I mean, but I'm just letting you know that's why I have my position.
And when more gun violence, are you talking numbers? You're talking percentage? But the point is the fact that I'm not as familiar with the statistics as obviously you are, and it would and if I were to try and quote some of that, I'd probably be saying something that's not accurate, and I would prefer not to do that.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. That's fair. I appreciate that. I'm
good.
just telling you why I feel the way I
that's
feel.
fine.
And I think fundamentally we both want the same thing. We don't want innocent people to be gunned down.
Absolutely.
Of course you're a decent man. You
nobody
don't want that
wants
to happen.
that.
Right. I just want to come to a place where Republicans and Democrats can have those conversations and let's come up with some things,
And that's exactly what I said. We need to get the people, the decision makers, and the people who have knowledge of these kinds of things. They need to sit down. They need to put away their politics.
Right.
And they need to come together, sit down, and say, okay, And I'm not talking about a national discussion, okay, because I think that's an overused, crappy phrase, But the people who can make that decision, as to what is the right solution, because that's what you're looking for. And I think a lot of us
There's
are
a
looking
lot of
for the
things I
same
think we
thing.
could do. Yeah.
Yeah. But the people who can make that decision or come up with those solutions need to get in a room and talk about it and figure it out. And they're not doing that.
I agree, and I think
And that's
Democrats
part-
want to do that.
No, I don't think Democrats want to do that. I don't
They've
think
been
anybody.
trying to do it
I don't
for-
think anybody
for decades.
seriously wants to do it.
Well, I think
No, the Democrats don't want to get they don't want to get the right people in the room.
Who would be the right people?
I
Republicans.
mentioned that. You
The
got to get
you think the NRA? You think the NRA wants to sit down with a bunch of Democrats?
The NRA needs to be in that discussion.
They don't want to be in that discussion.
They need to be in that discussion.
I'm telling you right now, I believe if Joe Biden and the Democrats had an opportunity to sit down with members of the NRA, they would absolutely take that upon them to do it. The NRA doesn't want to do that, and most
How do you know?
Republicans don't want to do it. Why? Because the Democrats have.
Have they been asked?
Yes, they have actually.
Uh-huh.
Obama made many. Listen, Donald Trump will speak to the NRA president right after the October 1 shooting, but they'll speak to Republicans, but I don't believe it's the NRA that wants to speak to Democrats.
Well, I think part of it is that they need to do that.
Yes.
And so do the Democrats. They need to get together and they need to have the conversation, and they need
agree.
to have a rational conversation.
I agree, because I think.
And if if they're waiting on somebody else to come up with a solution, you're not going to get a solution that's going to be palpable to the American public.
And I think we can end on this
And
topic
that's-
on this.
and that's part of
And
it.
I think we'll agree on this.
Okay.
What we're doing right now is not working. It's not working.
What we're doing right now there is no solution. There's no attempt to make a solution right now. There's no rational attempt to come up with a viable solution.
An assault weapons ban, I think, is a rational solution. You don't think that's rational?
Some people, I
think that's rational.
Okay.
We would disagree on that.
We'll disagree on that.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I think banning is a step in the wrong direction.
Okay. We certainly agree that we don't want to see what happened in Maine, what happened here in
absolutely.
Vegas. We don't want to see these continuing to happen over and over again unless we see some change. It's going to continue to happen. I don't think there's any argument there. All right. I want to ask you about, of course, you're the president of the Nevada Republican Club. You recently had Ron DeSantis, right? Was it last week?
It was Saturday.
Saturday. Can you tell me what that was like and how did that come about and what did you think?
Well, we put our club is here in Nevada, the Nevada Republican Club, here in Las Vegas, I'm sorry. We have over 400 members. We are a non-affiliated. We're a non-affiliated club other than the fact that we're a Nevada Republican Club. You don't even have to be a Republican to be a member of our club. Part of it is
Look at that. I might get invited.
So you don't have to be, you don't have to, you can be a member of our club as not have to be a Republican. Anyway, we have a luncheon the first Tuesday of every month at the Ahern Hotel on Sahara. At 11 o'clock, it's $40 if you're a member, $45 if you're not, $25 a year to be a member of our club. So we're not out to try and make a whole bunch of money. But we're just, we're covering our operating costs and expenses and things that we do during election cycle. As a 501c4, we do not endorse candidates. We cannot endorse candidates.
So you're not endorsing Ron DeSantis. You're just paying him to speak?
We didn't pay him.
Oh, okay.
We didn't pay him.
Gotcha. Even better.
We reached out to most, if not all, of the Republican candidates and offered them the opportunity to come speak at our club. or at a club function.
Yep.
Back in September, Larry Elder came and spoke
He's
at
been
our
on the
luncheon.
show before. We had a good spirited debate.
He came. He came to our luncheon and spoke in September. Week before last, we heard back from the DeSantis campaign. They were in town for the Republican and Jewish Coalition convention. And so they asked, hey, would the club like to host a function for us? And we said,
how long did he speak for?
He got, basically, there was an interview with Adam Laxalt and him. It was about half an hour to 40 minutes, I think.
What did he talk about?
Everything. I mean, they talked about the economy. They talked about what's going on in the world. They talked about, basically a lot of the things. They talked about immigration. They talked about the energy prices. They talked about the things that they talk about on the campaign trail. There was nothing what I would call significantly new or enlightening.
What are your thoughts about Ron DeSantis?
I like what he had to say.
Just in general. I mean, is that somebody that you would support, or how do you feel about Ron DeSantis?
I get a positive feeling. Am I in the Ron DeSantis corner? I'm not in anybody's corner right now.
Really? So you're not really supporting anybody?
I am keeping my powder very close to my, I'm keeping my cards close to my vest here. Part of it is because as president...
Well, you're obviously not supporting Joe Biden. I think I know
Well, that's true. I mean, obviously. But part of it is that, as president of the club, I don't want to it's not proper for me to show any kind of
your job
particular...
to be, and I appreciate that. It's your job, I want to be clear on this, to be middle grounded. Yes,
it's my job to be publicly
non-biased. Yes, you're a Republican, and you support Republican values, but you're not going to take one side and...
Not right now.
Okay, let me ask you this in a
Now, I mean, and if any of the other campaigns were to contact us and want to come to our luncheons or have an event with our club, we'd be more than happy to have them.
And I appreciate that. Let me ask you this, and I'm going to ask it in a very general way. I'm not going to mention any names. Some would say there are certain people in powerful positions that are Republicans that do not take that approach that you take. You're supposed to be pretty middle grounded. What would you say to some of those people throughout the country that are very biased and that take a side of a candidate or a strong position on something? What would you say to them?
They're an American, and that's combination of their responsibility, obligation, and choice.
Right. Gotcha.
Just the same thing where you get somebody who sits there and is all in on Joe Biden.
Right.
Or is all in on RFK Jr.
Right.
Okay. I mean, that's their, and the whether or not they have a position, be it, the actors in Hollywood that in 2016 were making commercials saying, vote your conscience and give your electoral vote to Hillary Clinton, which what they were doing. And they were out there, castigating President Trump, to the other folks on the other end of the spectrum who are, 100%, 150% on board with President Trump.
I get that, but
so, every American has that. That's part of our freedom of speech.
Yeah, I understand.
If you're the chair of a committee, you're still an American.
You have the right.
Still have that right.
I wouldn't take that right away from them. Absolutely.
Now, is it, and some people say, well, it's not appropriate. Well, that's a personal opinion.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
And so, in my personal opinion, being the president of the club, I am keeping my personal opinion to myself.
I think you're going to get more people joining your club by taking that approach, and you're not going to turn people off. That's my personal opinion.
And our club is open, like I said. If any of the other campaigns want to contact us and have an event, such as we did for Governor DeSantis, or
what if a Democrat wanted to speak?
Our speakers are not. We do not.
Can't be a Democrat.
No,
independent. What if Robert F. Kennedy Jr. hit you up and said,
like I said, we are. Except for certain circumstances based upon their current position. For example, we had Mayor Goodman come to speak.
Oh, cool.
Okay, at our club luncheon.
The mayor or Oscar? Former mayor.
We had
Carolyn?
I don't remember if he did or not. She did.
I'm a friend of Oscar's. She's a very nice lady.
Yes. I mean, she came to speak at one of our club functions. In fact, she spoke at our first luncheon after we opened up again after the pandemic.
Yep.
So, those possibilities may get depends, and it depends upon the individual.
Let me ask you this.
Sure.
There are some organizations in town that have Tucker Carlson speaking. There was an event that was supposed to have Alex Jones speak. So my question to you is there a line that you don't cross? Example, the local Republican Party here, I don't remember the organization, but Mac Miller was hosting an event, and the guest speaker was the guy who I think sadly committed suicide, but the guy that went after Steve Sisolak out of that restaurant and accosted him, which I think we all could agree is disgusting and it should have never happened. Sadly, he committed suicide. But during that whole event and after it, I criticized Mac Miller because I said, Why are you associated? It's one thing if you have a candidate, right? I think that's fine. Let people make their own decisions. But to have somebody like that. Now, listen, I'm not a Tucker Carlson fan. I get it. He's a big name. He's going to sell. I think he spreads right-wing propaganda and bigotry, and he's pro-Putin. We don't need to get into that conversation.
Good.
My question to you is there a line that you wouldn't cross as the GOP, the president of the Nevada Republican Club?
We bring in speakers that will educate our members. We bring in speakers who will help our members, educate our members is probably the best way of putting it. For example, we've had the school superintendent in, we've had the head of the Nevada Restaurant Association in, we've had numerous elected officials in. As we get into campaign season, we'll have multiple candidates come in and speak and give our candidates our members an opportunity to hear the candidates.
These are respected people.
Yes.
And I'm not talking about those people, obviously.
And so, the odds are no.
Right.
And part of it is that, we'll discuss it. And we have to answer to our members. If we bring in somebody that is totally that creates conflict or creates problems for our members, they're going to let us know that.
Yeah.
And they're going to let us know by not showing up.
Yeah.
And or quitting the club.
Like you.
But the point is the fact that what is that person going to do for our members and for our membership? We don't bring somebody in just to create a pep rally.
You want somebody that is a name, but somebody that at least has some respect.
Well, there's that. I mean, there's that part of it. But like I said, if you'll see a lot of candidates, we have elected officials. We've had the governor. We've had. There was a lady who is working on what they call the Water Fairness Coalition to come in and talk to our members about what's going on with water here. This month, on the 7th of November, we're having a guy come down from Reno who's going to talk about data and election, and he's going to do some kind of a look at what happened in 2022 from a data perspective.
Not Joey Gilbert.
No.
Okay.
No.
Happy to hear that.
Yes, and no, somebody from a data perspective.
Right,
although
right.
Joey Gilbert spoke at our club when he was running for governor, but part of it is coming from a data perspective and talk about how can we learn the lesson and use that to 2024 to maybe get more Republicans elected to the state legislature.
Yeah. So it's not really about
November.
Okay.
In December we're going to have John Sarpalis, the head of Nevada Policy,
Sure.
who's going to talk about ranked choice voting and the constitutional amendment on jungle primary and ranked choice voting. So those are the types of speakers we bring in, and those are the kinds that interest us.
Gotcha.
Candidates come in. Candidates are welcome, even if they're not on the list to speak, because it gives them an opportunity, and our members to meet the candidates. And so that's what we're about is informing our members and getting them an opportunity to meet candidates. And it's also a forum for candidates to get up on a stage in front of a, lack of a better phrase, friendly crowd.
I think that's great.
And work on how do I speak to a group of people, because some of these folks haven't done much of that.
I think that's great.
And that's what we do.
Sure, I think that's awesome, and $25 a year, I could probably afford that. So I think I'd be okay there. Well, I didn't really get into this. We only got like 5 more minutes here, but I might be opening up another can of worms. But what are your biggest criticisms of the Democratic Party today, particularly the Joe Biden administration?
Okay. I don't think they listen to Americans. That's the big one. The Democrat Party, and you're seeing that, and it's one of the things where you hear more and more about the fact that the Democrat Party, when it really became big under FDR, they listened to the union. They listened to the working people. They were known as the voice of the party of the working people. I don't think that exists anymore. All right? When they closed down all the schools and the teachers' unions fought against reopening the schools, they're not listening to the people. They're listening to the teachers' union, okay, who gives them millions and millions and millions of dollars. When you look at somebody who's running for office who says my goal is to get Donald Trump, they're not listening to the people. When you look at some of the things that are going on in the cities today, I mean, Chicago, they're starting to push back against the mayor over the immigration thing because they want to put the migrants in parks in neighborhoods where people don't want. It's not a good place for them to be. You look at what's going on in San Francisco. They're not listening to you and me. They're listening to George Soros and all of his money. They're listening to the teachers union and all of their money. Okay, and that's becoming more and more obvious. So that's probably a big criticism.
Can I ask you about that?
Yeah, just one other thing.
Sure.
The other thing is, they get stuck on their ideology more so. people talk about, well, Republicans have been fighting for weeks over to getting a speaker. Well, yeah, because you've got different people with different ideas and different ideologies and different beliefs who are fighting to make sure that they have the opportunity to have those opinions, beliefs, and heard and taken into consideration. You don't see that on the other side of the aisle. What's going on with Hamas right now is the first time you're seeing Democrats starting to talk negatively of other Democrats.
There certainly are a few.
And justifiably so.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. There certainly are a few. So listening to America, let me ask you about that. I think there are some cases where you can make that there are some Democrat policymakers out there that are not listening to America. But let me ask you this. 6 out of 10 Americans in just about every poll, Republicans and Democrats, believe in the woman's right to choose. Yet there are so many Republicans that are in office today, including the House Speaker, that if he had it his way, would ban abortion across the country. Is that listening to America?
They got elected based on those positions. Their voters elected them. Now, if the voters are not happy with that, then the voters can vote them out.
Right.
Now, and so, that's what legislatures do. You've got people in there with different positions and different opinions. They need to have that discussion. Okay? There are people on one side of the aisle that said you can have an abortion up until, including after the baby's born.
Not many people believe in that. Maybe 2% of Democrats.
And you've got people on the other side of the aisle that said abortion should be banned. There's no, and under no circumstances should abortion be allowed.
A good majority of Republicans believe that abortion should be abolished. And there are very few Democrats that believe in abortion.
Define a good proportion. I know a lot of Republicans who think that, incest, rape, life of the mother is a reasonable excuse.
Right.
Reasonable justification. Not excuse, reasonable justification.
Sure, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
And so there are a lot of, so you can't,
but Dave,
you throw
why,
that out there, and so you've got people on the far end of both of those. Okay, and
those are extremes.
Those are extremes.
But I think most 6 out of 10 believe that a woman should have the right to choose. All I'm saying is most Republicans elected in office are not on that same side. And you mentioned
they got elected by their constituents and by the voters based upon that position.
Totally understand that. But
so
but if you're talking about America. Yeah. Listening to America, most Americans believe in a woman's right to choose, and I think most Republicans don't have that same elected Republicans.
And you haven't seen, so far as I know, any movement on any legislation to ban abortion at the federal level.
Well, Roe versus Wade was overturned by the Supreme Court.
And you're right.
Now it's up to the states.
Right. I heard somebody talking about this last week. For 50 years, Republicans in this country said that Roe v. Wade was bad. It was a bad court decision, and it was bad law. For 50 years, Democrats hid behind Roe v. Wade rather than trying to pass a law. Okay, well, Roe v. Wade got overturned, saying, you know what, you're right, it belongs to the states.
Yep.
All right, it belongs to the states. Now, states are having referendums one way or the other. Kansas had one where they overturned, I believe they overturned the law that was passed by the Kansas legislature.
But Nikki Haley said it right, though. Nikki Haley said it right.
What did she say?
I disagree with her on the abortion issue. But Mike Pence was trying to make it like he could be the next president and ban abortion everywhere. He's lied. Nikki Haley said, listen, we need to be honest with the American people. While I am pro-life, I don't believe a woman should be prosecuted for having an abortion. And she's right about that.
Well,
also, late-term abortion. Most Americans are not for late-term abortion.
I agree with that.
So that is a fair position, I believe.
And that is the discussion that is going on in state legislatures. I mean, here in Nevada, back in 1990, they passed a referendum saying that abortion is legal up through the second trimester, 24 weeks. Okay? There's a referendum now that's going around, a ballot initiative for next year that has been filed. And basically, it removes that 24 weeks.
The only other thing I would
and it just basically says abortion is legal at any time for any reason whatsoever, for as long as the woman wants to have an abortion up until the time of birth.
We all have different views. The only
so now the voters are going to get to decide whether they want that to be the law.
The only point I was trying to make is there are a lot of Republicans out there that are also lawmakers that don't necessarily listen to America.
And there are a lot of Democrats out there that don't listen to America on that issue either. Now, and who are out there lobbying, who are sitting there and go, you can't ban partial birth abortion. Well, you know what? America is overwhelmingly against partial birth abortion. But they're not listening either. So,
most middle America agrees in the woman's right to choose no late-term abortion unless the mother's health is at risk.
But see, that's not necessarily. Now you get into these other questions about fetal viability. You get into these questions about heartbeat. And guess what? I mean,
everybody has
their own personal opinion. I have
don't
mine.
interfere in
You
other
have
people's
yours.
lives. That's what I say.
That's why we have the state legislatures now get to argue that stuff out. And I think that's where it needs to stay. The federal government needs to stay out of it.
The only other thing I would take issue to what you said that I would respectfully disagree is when you said the schools that were shut down. That was a state-by-state basis, and in some of those states, Republicans were governors, and they shut the schools down.
I agree
it wasn't
with that.
Just Democrats. I know, but you were making it like Democrats did it.
But see, but the point was that, you know, when some of these governors were talking about and trying to get the schools reopened,
right?
All right, you had what's her name, Weingarten, out there screaming, "You're trying to kill the teachers. You want to kill grandma. You're trying to kill our kids."
Yeah,
and everybody knew that was
that's a
garbage.
little extreme.
Everybody knew that was garbage.
That's a little extreme. I think we
but
all.
The point is the fact that, you know, I have 4 grandchildren. Okay, 3 of them are school age. I know what they, you know, I have somewhat of an idea of what they learned and what they didn't learn during the months that they sat at home. And yet they were on their computers. They were there because my daughter made sure they were on there every day. Okay, but I know what the learning was like at home versus what happens in school.
There were no winners.
No,
this is a very
not.
horrible, unique situation that this country was put in.
We have damaged an entire generation of kids over how they were treated over that year. And it's going to take a long time for them. It's going to take more than a year or two for them to recover from from catching up to that because of the education they didn't get. And our statistics show it. Like I said earlier, was it 1 out of 10 only 1 out of 10 African American kids in Clark County are proficient in math.
We're up against the clock here, but I'll say this. There are kids that have suffered through COVID. We all suffered through COVID.
Yep.
But I will also say that how many more lives would have been lost if some shutdowns didn't occur? Listen, we were not prepared.
You can't say, you don't know.
Well, neither do you.
No, nobody does.
Right.
You can't prove the negative. That's true in any case. You can't prove what if we'd done nothing? You don't know what would have happened.
I would say when we were losing 4,000 to 5,000 people per day from COVID, it probably wasn't a wise idea for Donald Trump to be holding rallies with 20,000 people. I think I can be pretty confident.
How many of those people got COVID and died?
Well, I mean, Herman Cain's one of them.
Okay, but was Herman Cain at the rally? I don't even know if Herman Cain. Okay,
he was. He was.
But the point is also you can't blame that on Donald Trump. But the point is, because Herman Cain didn't have to.
It's irresponsible.
Well,
it's irresponsible.
But the point is, it doesn't matter. I obviously whatever Donald Trump does, it doesn't matter. Anyway,
I think it does.
Well, to you it doesn't. I mean, it's negative. It doesn't matter. He.
Well, during COVID, when we were losing 4,000 to 5,000 people a day, I find it to be irresponsible to be holding campaign rallies and making people sign waivers.
There were a lot of other things that went on as well.
Absolutely, I don't disagree with you.
You can't point just that one finger at that one person.
I wouldn't do that. I'm just
okay. Well, you just did.
But in that aspect, yes, because we're talking about rallies and that sort of thing.
Well, we're talking about the fact you can't prove the negative. That's the whole point, and that's true of a lot of circumstances. Well, if we hadn't done anything, this would have happened. How do you know that? It's like somebody sit there and go, "Here's this product that's going to keep your hair from falling out." If you take it in your hair, but we can't guarantee it.
If there were no shutdowns and no mask wearing, you don't think more people would have died?
We don't know. Maybe I can't speak to
that.
Nobody can answer that.
Okay.
Nobody can answer that.
Well, I would say that more people would have died if we didn't take some of the precautions. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that mistakes weren't made because clearly they were.
I think like I said.
Yeah.
Again, we're getting into personal opinion here, and I'm not, but you can't answer that question with any certainty.
I think medical professionals can, but I guess that's another.
That depends on some of the medical professionals you talk to.
Particularly an infectious disease expert. We're both not that, but I will say this. I will say this in closing because this is really important. First of all, in closing, you serve this country honorably. You're a hero. I want to start out by saying that public service to this country. Which I have the utmost respect for you for doing so, and I also respect the fact that you're willing to have these conversations, and I can't say that about everybody, and I do have a lot of respect for you for doing that, and it sounds like you have a great club, the Nevada Republican Club, and you got a lot of people that I've spoken to that are a part of your club that have said a lot of nice things about you, and that's another reason why I wanted you to come on, because I know you're a stand-up guy, and you'll always have the platform here anytime you want to come back to have. I think these are good conversations to have, even if you might disagree. We're all Americans. We're not going to agree on everything, but I think these are really important discussions to have. And Mr. Gibbs, you're welcome back anytime, and I really do appreciate you being here, your service to this country, and your time. And I would love to do it again with you sometime, maybe, and we can get into some more issues. I'll try to leave Donald Trump out of it. Okay.
I mean, there are a lot of other things to talk about.
I agree.
Besides Donald Trump,
there are, but unfortunately, in the next year, Donald Trump is going to be a big topic.
So's Joe Biden.
That is true. That is true.
And that's part of it. We spent, like 2 minutes on Joe Biden?
We did. Well, a little bit more than that. I wanted to get your criticisms of Democrats.
Well,
sure.
So that's part of it too.
Yes.
I mean, I can come back and talk about Joe Biden as well.
I would love to do. And you know what? Next time, I promise you, that's the first thing we will talk about. Mr. Gibbs, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you being here. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for the opportunity. I enjoyed it.
I appreciate it.
I mean, we didn't agree on.
We agree on some.
We agree on some things.
We agree on more things than you would probably think.
We probably do.
Yeah,
and that's but we also had a good conversation about the things we disagreed on.
Absolutely.
And we're not going to go out in the alley and beat each other up afterwards. So.
Well, hey, speak for yourself. No, I'm just kidding. No,
so that's a good thing. I wish more people could do that.
Absolutely,
I really do. I wish,
and there's a way to do it respectfully, and we both did that, and that's what I appreciate about you, Dave Gibbs. I appreciate you being here. All right, I don't know how respectful I'll be about Josh McDaniels and the Raiders, but we're going to talk about that next. Our guest is Scott Gulbrenson. We'll take a quick break. Be back right after this. Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP.
Hey, everybody, are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a knockout. We're located at 467 East Silverado Ranch Boulevard, just off of Premier Road, half a mile east of South Point Casino, just minutes from the Las Vegas Strip. Come by and grab a slice of pie. Plus, check out our Brooklyn-inspired Italian cuisine. Our sandwiches are super. Hero, that is. Because why be a sub when you can be a hero? Stallone's Italian Eatery is here to serve you phenomenal food, Vegas. Forget about it.
Hey everybody, it's Brian Shapiro from Pushing the Limits here. I want to tell you guys about my good friends at the Postal Annex. They have a notary signing agent on site daily, no appointment needed, and they offer a full scale of printing services from shipping labels to documents, business cards, banners, photos, and business signage. They're your passport service headquarters. They offer passport photos and they can renew your adult passports. If you're traveling in a hurry, they can get those passports to you within 7 days or less. Mailbox rentals with a physical street address, and they also receive your packages from Amazon, UPS, FedEx, USPS, and more. Here's the best part. If you're a Pushing the Limits listener, they have an introductory rate of only $39 for a 3-month service. You can't beat it. Give them a call, 702-873-8005. Check them out at 6130 West Flamingo Road. It's the Postal Annex. And tell them I sent you.
Buying or selling a home is a huge life event that requires guidance from an expert in the industry and community. My name is Blake Wynn. You may recognize my name as my grandfather was the best governor the state of Nevada has ever had. Growing up in Las Vegas, I've come to know this community intricately. Now, I am raising a family here as well. So I understand all the issues impacting our home and quality of life. As the top realtor for the #1 real estate team at Keller Williams, you can have confidence in my experience, knowledge, and track record. When it comes to buying, selling, or investing in real estate, choose a name you can trust and someone who understands the community you call home. Call Blake Wynn today and experience the difference of a trusted expert. 702-540-3311.
The London Bridge Resort in Lake Havasu is the perfect place to vacation in style. Their beautifully designed suites include stunning views, a kitchenette, and free Wi-Fi. The well-reviewed and affordable resort has tons of amenities, including a breakfast buffet, kids camp, a 9-hole golf course, 3 pools, a marina, boat tours, a water slide, and a great nightlife scene. London Bridge Resort is centrally located in Lake Havasu, Arizona. Go to londonbridgeresort.com to plan your getaway today. London Bridge Resort, your Arizona oasis destination.
All right, welcome back. It is Pushing the Limits on a Tuesday. Talk a little Raiders football, or lack of. What a disgusting performance last night. Again, Garoppolo, I don't think he could have been any worse. And the guy we have with us right now, he actually wrote a great article that I read earlier today, criticisms of Garoppolo and Josh McDaniels and how well this Garoppolo situation is not working out, and it's only getting worse. Of course, I'm talking about my friend Scott Gulbrenson from the Silver and Black Today podcast. I actually listened to him yesterday after the game and actually learned a lot. and I always love his honesty. Gully, it's always a pleasure having you on, my friend. How are you?
Good, man. Having some camera issues, so I'm switching my camera up here on my end. But
that's totally okay.
but good otherwise. I mean, look, it's what else can you say? I mean, we've been talking about it for a few weeks here, but it keeps going further into the abyss with this team offensively with Josh McDaniels and with Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, look, Jimmy Garoppolo had a 9.9 quarterback ranking in the first half. 9.9. I don't know. I feel like the woman in Ferris Bueller. 9 times, right? 9.9. So you look at that and you're saying to yourself, okay, it can't get crappier. So Josh McDaniels comes out of the game yesterday in the press conference, and I was doing my live show after, so I didn't get to see it until a little bit later. And it's this we stuff again. And he would not look. I'm not saying, Brian, you throw players under the bus and you just crap all over them. But good coaches will say, hey, you know what? Yeah, he tried to well, the quarterback room knows. No. Jimmy Garoppolo is playing like dirt. And if Jimmy Garoppolo, you need to say, you say, look, Jimmy Garoppolo is not playing the way we need him to play. He's got to get better, or we'll have to make a choice. That's all you have to say. You don't have to go on and on about it. But Josh McDaniels is in denial, Brian. He's in denial because he does not know how to fix it, right?
And Scott, even worse, you're right. And Gully, even worse, is Garoppolo's his guy. The reason why Garoppolo is here is not because of Mark Davis. Listen, you could argue Mark Davis hired Josh McDaniels, and then Josh McDaniels made the decision. But it's getting worse even for Josh McDaniels because this is his guy. So my question to you is, after what you saw yesterday and what we all saw, which was a disgusting performance by Garoppolo, disgusting. You can only ask so much for the defense. When they hold them to 3 field goals, you got to put up points. So my question to you is, and this is the question that a lot of people are asking, does Garoppolo play next week? Does he start Garoppolo? What do you think is going to happen now?
If I had to bet on it, I'd say he starts him again, but I don't think he should. I think you've seen what you're going to see out of Jimmy Garoppolo. What else do you need him to do? What else does he need? Okay, yes, I understand the offensive line isn't great. He was sacked 6 times last night. Now, of that 6, okay, 4 legit, 2 were on him. He held the ball too long.
Right.
He overthrew passes. He didn't read coverage well. This is a 10-year vet, folks. This is not a rookie. So if I'm looking at that, any, I think, logical person will say, well, yeah, he's a 10-year vet, but he's making mistakes that are costing this team terribly. So if that's the case, throw the rookie out there, because you know what? Jimmy Garoppolo, his day is over. It's done. Anybody out there who wants to argue with me, I'll have them on your show, because they can't give me any reason why. Oh, well, the coach is bad. Yeah, Jimmy Garoppolo's bad too. So you can see on the field, he cannot hit. He had Devontae Adams at the end of the game. It was already over, basically.
I want to ask you about that play. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you just
that's
reminded
okay.
me. So I think this is really important. So after that play where Devontae Adams was wide open, the game was virtually over, but he was wide open. Garoppolo overthrows him by like 15 yards, right? After that play, I see Devontae Adams. We all see him. He walks to the bench. He throws his helmet. He says, I was wide effing open. Now, some people will criticize Devontae Adams for that. I'm not going to. I want a guy that's frustrated, because Devontae Adams, it's not all about him. The guy wants to win. And then I see Garoppolo walk, and just, it's a normal walk. You wouldn't know whether they went 3 and out or whether they scored a touchdown. Garoppolo just showing no emotion. I don't believe Garoppolo really cares about winning, because I think if he did, you would see more of that from him. I think he's cashing in on the contract he has. He loves living in Las Vegas, although I don't know how much longer he'll be here. And I see a guy like Devontae who wants to win. He's a good guy. He wants to win. He's so competitive. And I know a lot of these Raiders guys want to win. Max Crosby being another one. Josh Jacobs being another one. And when people go after Devontae on social media like they were yesterday, selfish, all he cares about himself. No, he's not. The guy wants to win. I want to see more of that emotion from Garoppolo. Am I wrong?
No, and you won't. He's not that kind of guy, right? So, but I agree with you. Look, Devontae Adams, when you have talent like that, to call him selfish for wanting the ball, he's going to give you the best chance to win. Correct. If you don't get the ball to him, not only that, but you had other wide receivers. Remember, he did not have a completion to a wide receiver in the first half, folks. First half. So if I'm out there and I'm doing that, I mean, if you're hosting a radio show, Brian, all duded up today for your Republican dude in your jacket there, I see. But if you are on a radio show and your co-host never lets you talk, wouldn't you get frustrated? Not because the co-host isn't great or that you guys shouldn't be a team.
Oh, wait a
but
second.
If you're not,
I did have that for 3 years at another station, but I'm sorry. I digress. Go ahead.
but if you're not allowed to contribute and help your team succeed, yeah, it's going to get frustrating. And look, I don't think he's going anywhere this year. Obviously, the trade deadline just passed 40 minutes ago, and he's not going anywhere. But if I'm him, I'm going over both of those guys' heads in the front office and at the coach. And I'm saying to Mark Davis, look, Mark, I want to be a Raider. I want to finish my career as a Raider. But I'm going to tell you right now, if things don't change around here, it's your decision. You do what you got to do. But I'm just going to tell you, if things don't change and I don't feel good about where they're going, then you got to get me out of here next year.
Well, I agree with you. If you're just joining us again, Scott Gulbrenson from the Silver and Black Today podcast. So I thought, Scott, and I was wrong, even though I said I wouldn't be surprised. And I said to myself, Detroit probably wins by at least 10 points. But I thought to myself, here's a last-ditch effort where McDaniels and the coaching staff have a closed-door meeting on Thursday, and maybe, just maybe, they can maybe turn it around and put together a solid football game yesterday. I was wrong. Detroit looked like the team that was more desperate. Detroit looked like the team that was playing on more emotion after their debacle last week. And I saw the same old Las Vegas Raiders that can't put up points. They can't move the chains and move the football. The defense is tired, and as the game progresses, they missed assignments. And Josh McDaniels with the same old press conference, we. And I just think people are done. There's a reason why Josh McDaniels continues to trend on social media. I don't think now there's any chance that Josh McDaniels survives after this season. He's got to be gone. They're still paying Gruden's contract. Now they're going to have to pay out this clown. And yes, that's what I think he is. Listen, personally, I don't have anything bad to say about the guy, but professionally, as a head football coach, he stinks. He stinks. Cool. And what else can we say here?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, look, it bears it out. You've had enough sample size. You don't need to see any more. There's nothing that you, especially because this is happening on offense. Now, if we were in this position, Brian, and the defense was just continued to being terrible, okay, you would have fired a defensive coordinator already. But then you could say, well, geez, they have this great offense. They just don't have a defense. The problem is they have a high-paid offense with all the pieces he wants there, and it's crap the bed continuously. So I think you look at that. But I want to point this out, too. Number one is, I had somebody in the Raider organization tell me that, and he told me this. He said, everyone around here thinks this guy is a goof. And this is not somebody on the side, on the coaching staff or anything like that. This is somebody who works in the building. And he said, wow, this guy doesn't even know how to talk to people. So you look at that, and I think you're seeing that he's just not made to be a head coach. Agreed. But the other thing we got to do is we got to go, just like any organization, Brian, okay? And you were talking about political parties just a few minutes ago. Same thing goes here, which is if your leadership sucks, you're not going anywhere. And I think in this case, with all due respect to Mark Davis as a business guy, he's failed here too, because he can't, for the life of him. I think he has the best intent. Okay. Yep. I think he wants to do well. He wants to win. He wants to make his father's legacy, and be proud of that. But he can't do it. He doesn't know. He doesn't make decisions. Now,
that was my next question. My next question was to talk to you about Mark Davis, and I want to give you the opportunity to do that. I want to share my opinions real quickly with you on Mark Davis, and some people are not going to like what I have to say. Mark Davis won a WNBA championship, 2 of them, with the Las Vegas Aces. A lot of people what a great owner of the Las Vegas. I'm going to start there, then I'm going to go to the Raiders. Sorry, I'll try to make this short. Mark Davis sits on the court. He eats his popcorn. And he puts a lot of money into that organization. I give him credit for that. He does not make basketball decisions. Natalie Williams, the general manager, does. I'm sure he was all for Becky Hammond, but that was not only his decision. He doesn't make basketball decisions, okay? He's the owner of the Aces. They won 2 championships. Congratulations. I'm not going to say he's a genius. Going to the Raiders, I agree with everything you just said. Nice guy. I don't know how much Mark Davis wants to win. I would think he does want to win, but they're one of the most profitable teams in the NFL. I think that's probably more important to him than anything else. Would he like to win a Super Bowl? Absolutely. Mark Davis has made bad decision after bad decision after bad decision. I can go all the way back to Gruden when Gruden was here, $100 million contract over 10 years. Gruden's a far better coach than Josh McDaniels. That's a low bar. But let's be honest, Gruden only won half his games in the NFL. I know he's got a Super Bowl, but let's be a $100 million contract. Can you find me any contract in all of professional sports where a guy was signed to a $100 million contract as a coach that is 500? The answer is no. Then he doesn't keep that coaching staff in place.
Yeah.
They get to the playoffs that year. I've talked to you about this before. Versace and Oli, those guys deserve to come back for another year. They did a phenomenal job under very difficult circumstances. And then he hires Josh McDaniels after the debacle in Denver. Mark Davis is a horrific owner of an NFL football team, and I wish he would sell the team. I'm sorry.
Look,
That's
I don't
my
think
ranking.
it is his business. I know the Aces are now his business, so I don't think he ever sells the team. But I will tell you this, and you brought it up because I was on 2 other radio shows across the country today, and I said the exact same thing you said, is how can he come in, and let's face it, I'm going to give him some credit here, or the people he hired credit, because, and he deserves some obviously by pass through. He's recreated and ignited the WNBA. I'm not a WNBA watcher. I'm full disclosure. I don't enjoy it. I respect the ladies, amazing athletes, and they do incredible stuff, but I don't watch it. But if you look at what he did in bringing in Hammond, now look what happened in Phoenix. Nate Tibbetts is now the highest paid coach in the WNBA. That doesn't happen if Mark Davis doesn't get Becky Hammond to Las Vegas and they win 2 championships. Mm-hmm. So he obviously has the model right with the WNBA team. And I had on our post-game show yesterday, my co-host Murph from Raiders Fan Radio, he said, listen, he needs like a president of football operations, a guy or gal, whoever, comes in and they keep Mark informed, but they make the decision on the GM. They hire the coach. It has nothing to do with the owner. That's what he's got to do with this net. You got to get somebody who has built a winning organization and done it and has the bona fides to come in and create a team that actually can compete, because this is so far off the rails that it's going to be tough to come back from.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think that's a great statement, and I think that'd be the best thing that Mark Davis could do. Where are we at right now in a couple months? I mean, does Josh McDaniels last a week after the season? I mean, I would have to assume at this point, after that embarrassing loss to the worst team in football, what the Chargers did to the Bears on Sunday night is what the Raiders should do to the Bears. They're a terrible football team. Not only did the Raiders lose that game, but they got blown out. They didn't compete against Detroit yesterday. I don't see this team getting any better. In fact, I think they're going to get worse. How hard are these guys? Listen, all due respect to the players, I love some of these guys and their work ethic, and obviously they want to win badly. But where are these guys going to be at mentally in 5 weeks from now? You know, if they lose 3 of their next 4 of their next 5, where are they going to be mentally?
It's a great point. I mean, if you saw the post-game scrum on YouTube last night, you know, Josh Jacobs basically all one-word answers. So what do you guys think you can do? I don't know. What are you going to do to fix this offense? Not my job. You know, you're getting answers like that. That's not a good sign. I will say this, and it starts with Max Crosby, I know, who gets all the attention he deserves. But the defense has progressed. I'm not saying, again, they're a top 10 defense, but if that defense had any offense last night, any offense, because the game was close anyway, because Detroit was not playing as well as they could have. If that defense wasn't good, it would have been a blowout because the defense kept them in the game. But I think your point about the players, I don't know how you can look at those individual guys who work their tail off for much longer. I mean, after last night, I mean, what else do you need to see, Mark Davis? What else do you need to see to make the decision that you need to make? And I don't think 9 more weeks is going to help that decision. I think it's only going to hurt the franchise more, hurt the players more, make it less desirable for free agents and draft picks to come. If the Raiders have a top 3 draft pick and go get one of those quarterbacks, the quarterback agent might say, I don't want to play there.
So you're basically saying, from what I'm reading from what you're saying, is that you think Mark Davis certainly should pull the trigger maybe before the season ends and start thinking about next year.
Yeah, I think you should start thinking about next year right now. And again, I don't overtly say fire somebody, but in this case, I'm going to say it's not working and it's not getting better. I don't know what else you have to see. So there has to be change. And if that change,
who's your number one guy? Go ahead. I'm sorry, I interrupt. Go ahead.
As an interim?
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. I mean, look, you have a not Rex Ryan. Ryan's brother. Why am I forgetting his first name?
Coordinator. Yep.
Yes. You have him there. You have Patrick Graham on the defense. Now, I know Patrick Graham, people were down on him. Look, his defense is, at least you're seeing progress there. You're seeing them get better. They don't have all the talent. They're banged up. So you have guys on there who could do that. I don't know. I mean, I think you have to look inside the organization and see who might be the best opportunity there. But I think it would be Ryan, just because I think he's got a personality, could take over, make them feel good about things. Yeah.
I mean, the problem, right, is that you're still paying Gruden's contract, if I'm not mistaken. You're going to have to pay out Josh McDaniels a lot of money, which clearly he doesn't deserve, but it's not his fault. Mark Davis hired him. It's Mark Davis's fault. So are you going to spend a lot of money and hire a big name coach? I would say the answer to that is probably no. But the fact that the Raiders are one of the most profitable teams in the NFL would lead me to believe that he certainly has the money to do it. But that's going to be the question now. That's I think, a month ago, or 2 months ago, especially those on Raider Nation will say, let's see how the season progresses. McDaniels isn't going anywhere. Those people are starting to change their tune. There's really not a lot of positive things now you can say about Josh McDaniels. You and I were saying this way before these other people were saying it, but I think the writing is on the wall right now, Scott, right? I mean, it's on the wall.
Yeah, I think it's on the wall, and they have a bye week after this Giants game. And I think that might be an opportunity. Maybe he's waiting for the bye week. I don't know. But, you talk about young coaches out there, like you said, big name coaches. And look at Mike McDaniel in Miami, one of the greatest young offensive minds. He spent 1 year as offensive coordinator in San Francisco. He's only making $3 million. I know only $3 million sounds like crazy, but that's cheap for NFL coaching. So I think you do that. But then Brian, and we can talk about this next week. I think you got to start looking at Dave Ziegler too. You got to look at the GM and say, what have you done? Who's panning out? Not many.
I couldn't agree with you more. I like what you said about the defense. While there needs to be much more improvement, at least we've seen some positives. And you're right. For most of that game, the defense kept them in the game. So what you're telling me is you wouldn't be surprised is after this Giants game if a change is made.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. The interesting thing is nobody's tracked down and gotten a conversation or the ability to ask Mark Davis a question on where he's at with all of it. I'm sure people are trying. There are some of those beat writers who have good relationships with him, and maybe he's just choosing not to speak on it. But that's not good for the fans either. I think people want to know what Mark Davis thinks. Simple statement like, hey, you know what? This is unacceptable what's happening with the team, and something has to change, and it has to change now. All you got to say, it's one sentence, 2 sentences, that's it. I think fans would feel better about it, at least knowing that he's not happy with the direction. As of right now, the last time they heard from him was him yelling at that fan, smarten up.
Right.
And that's become a meme now because it's ridiculous because the team just keeps getting worse.
Well, that was he's reacting on emotion, and he's getting very defensive. This is his guy, Josh McDaniels, just like Garoppolo is Josh McDaniels' guy. So we'll have to wait and see how this plays out. A lot of drama in Raider Nation right now. A lot, I guess, good and bad time for us to be talking Raiders football, but I always appreciate your perspective. I read your article on Garoppolo and criticisms of Garoppolo. Spot on, my friend. Spot on.
Appreciate it.
Great job. How can people follow your articles and your podcast? Please give out that information.
Yeah, sure. You can follow me on x.com at LVGully, Gully. Also, I write up on SportsNaut, that's sportsnaut.com, where I cover the NFL, the NBA, but also obviously the Raiders. And you can get the Silver and Black Today show anywhere you get your audio. Just search it for that and subscribe, and we're good to go.
And in my opinion, nobody does better post-game coverage after a Raider game than what you do. Honestly, it's honest, it's fair, and sadly, there are some members of the media that cover the Raiders that are afraid to do what you do, and that's why I have the utmost respect for you. Gully, always a pleasure having you on the show. I wish we could be a little bit more positive, but right now there's not a lot of positive to talk about. Scott Gully, Gulbrenson, everybody, appreciate you coming on. We'll look forward to talking to you next week, okay?
Yep, we'll see you Monday, Brian. Thanks.
Appreciate it, Gully. Thank you so much. Scott Gully usually joins us on Monday, but the reason why we didn't have him on Monday is, well, for obvious reasons. The game was last night. That's why we had him on today, because I like when he gets into screaming battles with Chris Wynn, our mutual friend Chris Wynn. All right, so we got some big guests lined up tomorrow. I'm really looking forward to. And let me start by saying this. I really appreciate Dave Gibbs coming on the show. Stand-up guy. He was willing to come there and sit in the hot seat and have a debate with me about a number of different issues. Seems like a really good, decent man. And we have a mutual friend. And I appreciated him doing that. I really did. I thought it was a really good conversation. We don't agree on a lot of things, but, that's the beauty of having debates on this show. I don't always agree with people on everything. They don't always agree with me, but we duke it out, we talk it out, and that's what we do. So we have a Purple Heart recipient a hero coming on the show with us tomorrow. A man who ran for president. He actually ran against Nancy Pelosi. He is a sitting congressman out of Massachusetts, and he is a great guy and somebody that I hope runs for president again. He's a hero. Boy, is he's going to have a lot to say about Israel, and I'll even ask him about members of his own party that are anti-Semitic, in my opinion, and anti-Israel. Seth Moulton will be joining us on the show tomorrow. Really looking forward to having him on the show. It's a great guest, and really looking forward to that. Tomorrow is Wednesday. There's going to be plenty of sports to discuss tomorrow as well. But that's a wrap, folks. Appreciate you guys coming tuning in. I shouldn't say coming on the show. I can't have everybody on the show, but tuning in, whether it's the FMAM dial or social media, or even me being linked up with Occupy Democrats. That's going very well as well, if anybody was wondering about that. Anyway, thanks for joining us, everybody. Appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you same time, same place tomorrow. Happy Halloween, everybody. Have a great day.
Hey, everybody, are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a knockout. We're located at 467 East Silverado Ranch Boulevard, just off of Premier Road, half a mile east of South Point Casino, just minutes from the Las Vegas Strip. Come by and grab a slice of pie. Plus, check out our Brooklyn-inspired Italian cuisine. Our sandwiches are super. Hero, that is. Because why be a sub